NNPC Limited reaffirms progress on Port Harcourt refinery, addresses misleading claims. Central Bank of Nigeria to sanction banks and agents hoarding cash. Major food aid scale-up underway to farmer in East Sudan, says World Food Programme. Plus, oil prices steady with focus on Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire, OPEC Plus policy. The program is Business Express, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I am Benny Adams, your guide. Good to have you join us at this time. Now, that time we talk business. I will start by telling you that Nigeria is taking significant steps towards energy transition, with a strategic approach being adopted by the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NTA, and its partners. Bossed Able also reports that the goal is to achieve net zero emissions by 2060. The report.
Industry players here are deliberating on how best to position the economy towards harnessing opportunities for a sustainable economic shift. A key question on everyone's mind is, how prepared is Nigeria towards its energy transition plan come 2060?
And we need to know what will be the impact of energy transition on Nigeria's economy, and how will that affect our revenues from oil. How will that affect jobs? How will that affect livelihoods in this energy transition that is already here?
Recent report by NTA says Nigeria lost 362.28 million barrels of crude oil due to measurement errors, sabotage, and production adjustments between 2014 and 2023. And as the world shifts away from fossil fuel, experts emphasized the need to sustain ongoing economic reforms and measures to stabilize the economy, which they believe is crucial for securing Nigeria's energy and economic future. Part of the deliberations was the launch of the methodological study to measure the long-term impact of energy transition on the economy.
I am committed to fostering transparency, inclusivity, and accountability in this journey of transition.
The only way we can get appropriate data is to rely on primary data, to ask questions and let people respond on how they feel the transition is going. And with that, we can build enough data with which to interrogate the research questions.
The recent COP29 in Baku highlighted the importance of energy transition, with the International Renewable Energy Agency launching a report on delivery the UAE consensus, which aims to triple renewable energy capacity and double energy efficiency by 2030. In Abuja, Bossede Able Lamosu, NTA News.
Now, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has fulfilled its pledge of restreaming the Port Harcourt refining company, signaling the commencement of crude oil processing from the plant and delivery of petroleum products into the market. Lydia Sampson has that report.
Wait, it's over at last. Port Harcourt refinery is producing petroleum products. We've actually gone around the refinery, seen the sample of the products, and finally we're here at the evacuation and loading bay. A serene and joyful atmosphere that resonates with Love Igwe youth leader Alisa Eleme community and host community of the Port Harcourt refinery.
In short, I'm the most happiest person. As you can see, we have most of the youths that are sitting around me right here. I've already given them an orientation that they will have what to be doing from now henceforth.
Loading of petroleum products, including petrol, diesel, household kerosene, started in earnest, while other products will be dispatched as well. Group CEO NNPC Limited, Mele Kyari, described the commencement of the load-out activities as a monumental achievement for Nigeria, which signifies a new era of energy independence.
We are convinced beyond all doubt that without the support, perseverance and patience of Mr. President, we will not have achieved this feat. And all of us must congratulate him because this is his massive pressure that made us to come to this level.
One thing that we have noticed also is the flare. If we can all see, the flare is very clean, there's no smoke, so which shows that the plant is working very well.
The Port Harcourt Refinery Rehabilitation Project has achieved over 16 million man-hours with zero loss. Lydia Sampson.
Meanwhile, the board and management of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited have expressed appreciation to Nigerians for their support and excitement over the safe and successful restart of the 60,000 barrels per day old Port Harcourt refinery. The company's spokesperson is emphatic that the old Port Harcourt refinery is currently operating at 70% of its installed capacity, with plans to ramp up 90%, therefore producing the daily output of straight-run gasoline blended into 1.4 million liters of petrol, kerosene 900,000 liters, diesel 1.5 million liters, low pure fuel oil, that's the LPFO 2.1 million liters, and the liquefied petroleum gas, additional volumes in line with the resolve to provide results. NNPC Limited has also made substantial progress on the new Port Harcourt refinery, which will begin operations soon. The company urges Nigerians to focus on the remarkable achievements being realized under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration and to support efforts aimed at delivering more dividends to the nation. Now, still on energy matters, oil prices edged up on Wednesday with markets assessing potential impact of a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hezbollah, and Sunday's OPEC Plus a meeting in which a group could delay a planned increase to oil output. Brent crude futures rose 29 cents to $73.10 a barrel in early trades, and the U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was up 26 cents at $69.03. Both benchmarks settled lower on Tuesday after Israel agreed to a ceasefire deal with Lebanon's Hezbollah. Now, away from energy, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, says it won't hesitate to sanction banks and agents holding cash at this particular period and remains committed to addressing cash crunch witnessed across the country. At the Monetary Policy Committee meeting, the governor of the Central Bank, Olayemi Kadoso, also said the committee voted to raise monetary policy rate by 25 basis points to 27.50% to further tackle inflation.
With inflation continuing to erode purchasing power and undermine economic growth, the Central Bank Monetary Policy Committee is meeting for the 298th time to tackle inflation, which has persisted at 33.88% in October. In considering recent economic and financial developments, the committee noted that cost of petrol has continued to have a negative impact on cost of production, urging monetary and fiscal authorities to deepen collaboration to achieve price stability.
With respect to cash specifically, we are ensuring that all the deposit money banks are getting all the cash that they require. We are ensuring that is happening. We are having regular dialogue between the central bank branches and the cash money center banks all over the place to ensure that that also is happening.
Concerned about persistent exchange rate pressure, the Apex Bank urged deposit money banks to explore measures to boost market liquidity as they focus on stabilizing the foreign exchange market. The committee retains cash reserve ratio at 50% for deposit money banks and 16% for merchant banks, liquidity ratio at 30%, and asymmetric corridor at plus 500 and minus 100 basis points around the MPR. In Abuja, I am Musa Abubakar.
Now, yesterday, Chris Kaka, who is the National Program Coordinator of the Trade Network Initiative, joined us to predict the outcome of the monetary policy meeting. And today, he's back in the studio for us to analyze the numbers. And it is a 25 basis point interest rate hike to 27.5%. Good to have you back in the studio, Mr. Chris.
Thank you very much.
Great. The elephant is still in the room, talking about inflation, and interest rates are on the rise again. What was your initial reaction to possibly the postulations as to whether the rates are going to be retained or reviewed upwards? And when you saw the numbers, what's your reaction in general?
Okay, thank you very much. Like you rightly pointed out yesterday, the predictions were that because inflation stood at 33.88, which is one of the all-time high, the central bank had no other option but to also raise the monetary policy rate to also address that particular one. If you remember the last three meetings, the last one was about 250 basis points when they moved it. The one after that was 100. And the last one that was held in September was by 50%. And we're surprised at this one. I was even expecting something higher. And what we have now is just about 25% basis points, which moved it from 27.25 to 27.50. You also realize by that particular number that the central bank, there is a reluctance on the part of the central bank to also continue to increase interest rate. But it has no option because it needs to actually address what is really going on ground. And if you watch other statistics, cash reserve ratio has been retained the way it is for deposit money bank, it remains at 50, merchant banks 16% from 14%, liquidity ratio has remained the same. So you will find that all other ratios actually remain the same except the MPR reserve. So for me, I think the central bank was being modest when it then said we only do a 25% as it were. But it was important that the central bank did something. Having said that, is to realize that the inflation we have at the moment, naturally, if we never had a crisis, festive periods like this will always have inflation because there is a lot of pressure in whatever is in the market there. So that is added to what we have currently that is giving us the 33.88% inflation. But I think they've done well and they've been conservative in terms of the MPR increase itself. Particularly around
talking about the bank being a little bit conservative, which you mentioned, the last two increases, which we had highest of like about 200 basis points increase was about the highest. Then after that, it stepped down to about 100, and last one was a 50. That's correct. Then now 25. It means there is a reduction in the hike. There's a reduction, which says, will I say, does that actually mean that these efforts that are being put in place are actually slowing down inflation? And like you said, the reasons that have been put forward before now has been the fact that there's so much liquidity out there that needs to be mopped up. But you also alluded just a moment ago that festive periods like this are actually characterized by some of this inflation, which we've witnessed from the last figure of 33 upwards. Does that mean, I don't understand, what is bringing the pressure on whatever it is that is causing inflation at this particular point in time? Is it about us having much more demand to products and services than supplies that we have? What's the economics? Break it down for the man on the streets to understand what these issues are.
The truth is the supply side constraint cannot be ruled out of it. Obviously, there is this equilibrium between what is supply and what is available. But mostly what is really driving inflation here is the high cost of energy, which government is also addressing. Beyond that is the fact that we also have an inflation, the headline inflation which we have, one, producing food now, the cost of production of food, insecurity is part of the reason. I'm sure government is addressing it. But more importantly is the fact, and which is of concern to the central bank, is that we also have imported inflation. The argument is, if you import a commodity into this country, because our naira has been devalued, it will arrive in this country very expensive. Where there are alternatives to it, you see that people on their scale of preference move away from that imported item to the locally produced one, mounting pressure on the locally produced one, thereby increasing the price of the locally produced one. So an element of the inflation we have on ground is also a function of the fact that our naira has been devalued, and whatever you import into this country come at a very high landing cost, and it is putting pressure on those who want to seek for alternatives of it. So it's a combination of so many things which you have on ground. So if you want to deal with inflation, as it were, beyond increasing the number, is also see how you can address issues of the devaluation of the naira, so you can also stabilize the interest rate, the inflation, which is rising in this country at the moment. But like we said, the central bank has also been modest in increasing, like the numbers we turned up. The rate of increase has gradually continued to reduce. And you must also give it to the central bank that its hands are tied. There's not much to do, but they needed to increase it. So they put a little, just 25% on it.
Okay, part of some, aside the monetary policies being put in place to slow down inflation, some fiscal measures have actually been brought in to ensure they complement what the CBN is doing. In doing so, we've seen waivers given to some food items that are supposed to be imported into the country. But yet, we see even in the numbers of imports, it's reducing as Nigerians are looking inwards to see the alternatives to these imported products. As you've rightly alluded, the cost of transportation, the exchange rate is not actually favoring us, talking about the naira to the dollar. Now with the pressure on what is available, how should we go about it? Where should we go from now? We've been talking about increased productivity, but again, the lending rate is also high. How should we go about it?
If I got your question, how do we go about exactly what now? I didn't get that part of it.
Now we have pressure on the alternatives we have in country.
That's
yes,
correct.
Ordinarily people will tell you increase production, but how do we increase this production when the lending rate from the commercial banks is actually going high?
Okay.
How do we balance up?
Fine. This is the way it goes around. I think the central bank has done it at a point in time. See, for consumptions, you can disaggregate the rates that you've actually increased, and they've done it at a point in time. For the productive sector, you can give them a little marginal increase in the rates. Give them a concessionary rate so that they can continue to produce, and don't put a flat one like the MPR is like a basis that defines the interest of lending and borrowing by the deposit money banks and other financial institutions. And so what is really going to happen is that if you reduce that for the productive sector, and that for consumption might remain where it is, you might be doing well to increase production, and then still find a way to increase productivity, which is what I think the central bank may need to do at the moment. But having said that, is that there are plans also on the way, which I'm aware of the central bank trying to see, the government, like you announced, is actually now trying to see that the Port Harcourt refinery is now brought back. That will reduce highly the current headline inflation, which has to do with energy and food, to a significant level. It will reduce cost of production, because at the moment, the Purchasing Managers Index, which is a reflection of manufacturing activity, tells you it has actually gone below 50% at 49 something thereabout, and it's telling you that the productive sector, in fact, the manufacturing sector is not doing well as you expect it to be. And we expect the central bank to also look for concessionary interest facility to give to them so they can continue to produce and meet the excess demands that is going on at the moment.
Okay, now that we're talking about those factors responsible for retaining inflation, as it were, or allowing it to grow, you mentioned energy as one of the issues. Yes, it's food inflation. Energy is actually the cost when you alluded or you connected with transportation. Now that the Port Harcourt refinery is up and are running at this point, what should we expect? Should we expect any impact going forward?
The fact that the Port Harcourt refinery is actually running, whether it's at full capacity or not, I think that's one of the best news. 70% of the 60,000 installed capacity there. That's the best news anybody must have actually gotten this year. And the impact it will have, that it will actually bring down the cost of production. Economic activities will definitely pick up. With the fact that because it has been one major reason why inflation has continued to rise. And if you can tackle that particular problem, I tell you that cost of production will begin to come down, consumption will increase, supply will also increase, and I think the economy will begin to gradually pick up. That's the way I would like to see it. It's a good news that cannot be denied by anyone.
So now we have a Port Harcourt refinery up, complementing what Dangote is already dishing out. Should we expect more of these refineries coming on? And when they come on, in the whole, what should we expect for the economy?
In the whole, what we should expect for the economy is that we expect, standard of living ordinary Nigerians to improve, because if you go out there and ask them questions, everything looks ridiculous. Yesterday, I was hearing that the GDP was actually rising. And for me, I said here in your studio that the GDP does not reflect the realities on ground. And that you needed, it's only when you want to do cross-country comparison, you might be using the GDP, that what you needed to do is to look for something like the prosperity index, which will tell you that the reality on ground is this. These are the statistics. Because the GDP is actually misleading. The truth on the street is that Nigerians are really suffering. And with what is going on ground now, I can assure you that Nigeria will heal a sigh of relief that economic activities are picking up. Because you see this energy thing, it's affecting everything.
It is.
The woman who owns one small blending machine that brines pepper is also affected. Practically everybody is affected by it. So if you can do that and also see how the central bank can stabilize the exchange rate, I think it's doing that now. It wants to remove the whole idea of speculations that is going on and the round tripping that is going on within the forex market by saying, look, BGCs, I'm going to put you into the mainstream of the official exchange market to provide for retailers, and I'm going to be supplying you 20,000 US dollars. I don't know whether it's weekly or monthly, for you to begin to sell. That way, you see that the official market rate at the NAFED market and the parallel market rate are unified, and nobody is doing speculations of exchange rates, which is also affecting the devaluation of our naira presently. So I think the central bank is doing the right thing necessary to stabilize the naira, increase the liquidity of the foreign reserve. If production begins to pick up, our reserve will begin to flow in, and we'll be able to begin to pick up our economy from where we left it the last time before the government came in.
Now, Chris Kaka, good to hear it from your own very mouth that better days are ahead. Thank you very much for your contributions at this time.
Thank you for having me in your studio.
Great. Business Express continues after this break. Do stay with us.
The presidency invites stakeholders, various artisans and traders associations to the second special town hall and sensitization event on the presidential loan scheme for MSMEs in Nigeria. Special guests, Coordinating Minister of the Economy and Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Edun, Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Abubakar Bagudu, Minister of Information and National Orientation, Muhammad Idris Malagi, Minister of State, Industry, Trade and Investment, Mr. John Eno, Implementing Agency, Bank of Industry. Date, Friday, November 29, 2024. Venue, FM Event Center, Joel Ogunaike Street, Ikeja GRA, Lagos. Time, 11 a.m. prompt. Announcer, Temitola Adekunle Johnson, MFR, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Job Creation and MSMEs.
Good to know you're still here. Now to the markets globally. Asian stocks fell on Wednesday and currencies were volatile as investors fretted over whether other countries could be targeted for tariffs under incoming U.S. President Donald Trump, a day after he pledged new levies on Canada, Mexico and China. Let's now join Maria for one update. Hello, Maria.
Hello, Benny. Global markets are mostly bullish this Wednesday afternoon. Let's break it down. European markets are subdued amid tariff threat. Also, shares of Just Eat Takeaway were down 1% after the company announced it will delist from the London Stock Exchange next month. The figures showed DAX edged down by 0.42%. We have FTSE higher at 0.09%. We have the CAC, which dropped at 1.02%. Asia markets were mixed as China's industrial profits dropped by 10% in October from a year ago. Traders in Asia also assessed inflation data out of Australia. The figures showed Nikkei dipped 0.80%. We have Shanghai Composite, which surged higher at 1.53%, and the Hang Seng Index up by 2.32%. U.S. stock futures are a little changing as traders await the release of Federal Reserve's favorite inflation gauge. Futures tied to the Dow Jones were up by 0.01%. We have Nasdaq Composite down by 0.14%. Nasdaq Composite reflects this at 0.32%. Africa markets are mixed, with South Africa JSE Top 40, which traded in red at 0.20%. Other figures traded in green at 0.10%. Tunisia Chin Index, Namibia Offshore Index higher at 0.01%. We have Ghana follow suit at 0.13%. That's the executive summary of the global market today. I'm Maria Aduzakari. It's over to Benny.
Thank you, Maria. This is where we end this edition of Business Express. We do value your feedback, so keep the comments, observations, and suggestions coming. Be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on NTA's channel. Business Express returns tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Do keep a date with us as we keep thinking and doing business. Remember, better days are ahead for the Nigerian economy.